Welcome to Church Online. My name is Scott, and I'm so glad to be back for week 5 of Get Your Life Back. Now, if you're here for the first time, I want to shout out a huge welcome, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. You know, a great way to get everything you can out of the Church Online experience is to engage in every part of Church Online. We never intended it to be something that you just watch. Our intention is for Church Online to be a complete church experience. Music, a message, and a community of people ready to share in the experience and grow together. So, there are a few things that you can do to join in today. One way is to join the chat. You know that there are hundreds of people that log in each week from all over the world, and the best place to connect with them is in the chat. So let us know how your week was and make a new online friend today. Another great way to engage is to join the private chat and let us know how we can pray with you. Each week, we want you to know that no matter where you're watching from and whatever you may be facing, you are not alone. And if you need someone to pray with you or just to talk, click that live prayer link and one of our hosts will join you for a private chat. Now, if you're watching this stream from one of our archives on Facebook, YouTube, or the Cape Christian app, we would love to invite you to one of our Church Online experiences where you can engage with the whole community like we just talked about. You can check out live.capechristian.com to find the next live event. You know, one of my favorite ways to connect with God is in this next time of worship. I can turn the lights low, the volume up, and drown out all the stress and worry from this past week. It's so refreshing to not have to do, but just be. So let's head inside and join the worship team.
Hello everybody, welcome to Cape Christian. All right, put those hands together. Sing this with us. When night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. In my mind says I'm not good enough. let's just turn our attention to him right now. We love you, God. You are the medicine, the only cure for everything I feel within, redeeming what was lost and all that could have been. Oh, this is a healing kind of love.
You are the truest friend, staying through the night when I was at my end, comforting my heart till it was light again. Oh, this is a faithful kind of love. Yes, it is.
An everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, Emmanuel, God with us, you're here with me. Wonderful Counselor, the government is resting on your shoulders. You are the final word. You alone decide when every page will turn. So I will trust your timing, I will rest secure. Oh, this is a steady kind of love. Yes, it is. An everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, Emmanuel, God with us, you're here with me. Wonderful Counselor,
Jesus. You are here. Your presence is in this place. We surrender to you in this moment. We rest in you, Jesus. You are the Prince of Peace. You are wonderful, God. In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the day. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, and for even in your suffering, you saw through the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. The morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good. For the Lamb had conquered death, and the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe. For the souls of all who come to the Father are restored, and the church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not fade. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who is resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings. Yes, come on, let's give Him our praise today. Hallelujah. Oh God, we praise you. We give you all the praise, all the glory. God, there is no one like you. There is no one like you. That's why we take time in our service to sing these songs. We want to give you worship. We want to give you praise because you're so worthy. You deserve it. And God, you're so good that even though we want to take this moment to give you just a little bit, just a little something back, you come and you meet us here and you pour out your presence on us, and we're just so thankful for that, God. It's so refreshing. It's so peaceful to be here with you. It's so wonderful, God. There truly is nothing like being in your presence. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And we know you're not finished yet, God. You have a word you want to say to each and every one of us here today. So help us to hear it and to do it. We love you, God. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Thanks, worship team, and I hope that all of you online had fun singing along with us and had an opportunity to disconnect from the stress and worries of life and connect to God. If this is your first time joining us for Church Online, I'd like to say again, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. In fact, we would love the opportunity to get to know you. So over in the chat window, we just posted a Connect link just for you. So go ahead and click that link and you'll be given a digital Connect card. Go ahead and fill that out and send it our way. In return, we're going to send you some information about Cape Christian and Church Online. Thank you again so much for checking us out. Now, for those of us that call Cape Christian home, this is the time that you can give your tithes and offerings. And if you've never given through Cape Christian, it's easy to do. Just click the Give link at the top of the page or the link in the chat window. From there, you'll be able to create an account on our secure giving platform and start giving through Cape Christian today. And because of your continued generosity, we get to bring the hope of Jesus in new and fresh ways through Church Online. We love getting to introduce people to Jesus and watch them as they realize who He created them to be. So thank you again, church. Group signups are live, so click that sign up link and join an online group today. And we're aware that groups are a bit limited, so if you find yourself out of a spot, pray about possibly hosting a group yourself. It's easy and super fun to do. We guide and walk you along through the process, and it's a great way to give back and serve your online community. All right, church, let's head back inside for week 5 of Get Your Life Back as we join our guest speaker, Pastor Will Hutcherson.
It is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker this weekend, and it's kind of an interesting story. A couple weeks ago, Corey asked me to speak on this topic. We're doing the Get Your Life Back series. He said, would you talk about getting your family back? I really want a series on getting your family and your most relationships, getting those back. I said, yeah, absolutely. This is awesome. I just got this amazing book by one of my friends. It's called Seen, and I just bought this, and it's so awesome. It talks about all of the things that I'm not going to give away right now because he's going to talk about it. But I was like, this is so cool. I'll talk about all that. And he told me about that on Sunday. He's like, that sounds great. Let's go in that direction. And then on Wednesday, I got to his house. I said, you know what? My friend, the author, lives 30 minutes down the road. I feel kind of weird talking about his content when he's right there. Like, could we just drive him over and have him speak his own content? He's like, that's the best idea ever. So I got booted, but Will is awesome. And Will is awesome because he didn't just write the book on it. And we always talk about that at Cape Christian. We don't want people that just talk about it, but people who are actually walking it out. And so Will is somebody who, just as I've gotten closer and closer to, he loves the Lord, but he loves his family so, so much. And he puts them first in everything. So you're not just hearing from somebody who literally wrote the book on it. You're hearing from somebody who walks it out. So if you could please give an awesome, warm welcome to the one, the only, Will Hutcherson.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for the kind words, Joseph. And that's so encouraging. I am a native here and actually grew up just in North Fort Myers. So you people are my people. You know, you're my people. So it's good to see you all. And I'm honored to be here at Cape Christian. I've spoken a few times with the student ministry, but now I get a chance to share with you today, and I'm just so honored to do that. Being here and living in this area, anytime I meet somebody who lives in Cape Coral, this is the church I tell them to come to. Like, this is it. So, like, I love your church. I love your pastor, Pastor Corey. I'm hoping I can match his energy today, with all the energy that he has. But I just love your church, and so I'm very honored. As Joseph said, I am a pastor, I'm an author, and I'm a speaker. A few years back, I started a nonprofit called Curate Hope, and I travel the country with myself and another guy, Malik, and we have a few people who teach with us and present with us, and we talk about mental health and issues pertaining to kids and teenagers and young adults. And so we've been working in public schools, we've been working in churches, and that's kind of my world. I've kind of gone from full-time pastor for over 15 years to pastor/mental health advocate now. And that's taken me to this journey of writing this book called Seen that Joseph was just talking about, where it's really practical tools. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's practical tools to help parents and caring adults who have kids and teens or anyone in their life that's hurting, dealing with anxiety, depression, and despair. Because the reality is, as we all know, we have a mental health crisis among us, don't we? And it's not just with kids and teenagers, it's really with every demographic, but especially with kids and teenagers, we've seen a mental health crisis. And as we've been in this series called Get Your Life Back, today is really about getting back your relationships. Because chances are, if you're in this room or you're watching online, chances are you have somebody in your life that you really care about. And somebody that is close to you. Maybe it's a kid, maybe it's a teenager, maybe it's a young adult in your life. Maybe it's a college student, maybe it's a coworker or a neighbor, or perhaps even a spouse. And you're watching them go through something. You're watching them deal with anxiety, perhaps even panic attacks. You're watching them be suffocated under the weight of depression or maybe a deep despair. And maybe you've just often wondered, how can I help? What can I do? Oftentimes, I'm just going to skip around in my notes a little bit, but oftentimes the three questions that we kind of wonder and ask are how can I fight against this invisible enemy? I don't know if they can jump around. Sorry, guys, I totally messed you up on my notes, but they might show up. But that's okay. It's my fault. It's my fault. But there's these three questions. I'll just read it from my notes. That we wonder, like, what can I do against this invisible enemy? Maybe you see somebody who's struggling, and you're just like, I don't know how to help. Oh, here it is. Am I missing something, right? And we look at the people who are suffering in our life, and we wonder, am I missing something? And am I doing everything right? Am I saying the right things? How do I support somebody who's going through, as one theologian called it, the dark night of the soul? How do I help? And perhaps, it's very likely, that there might be somebody even here in this room or watching that you're experiencing this dark night of the soul. And sometimes we can kind of condemn ourselves or put guilt or shame on ourselves when we go through these things. And we think things like, maybe I just need more faith, or maybe I just don't have enough faith, or maybe I'm just not praying enough. But the reality is none of that's true. You see, just like you have a heart, a physical heart, just like you have a stomach and you have organs in your body and you have eyes and you have teeth that have to be taken care of, you also have a brain. And that brain is an organ just like every other part of our brain, our bodies, and that also can sometimes just have some things that happen. And sometimes it's not just spiritual tools, that there are practical tools that we need to engage and recognize that God has wired our brains in a certain way, and that if we can understand that and have wisdom to understand that, then perhaps we can help shift things into a new perspective. And so, I'm often reminded of Daniel chapter 2, verse 21, that says, "It is he who changes the times and the epochs. He removes kings and establishes kings, and he gives wisdom to wise men and knowledge to men of understanding." You see, when we look at all these things that have happened, we can stop and pause and say, you know what? God's given us wisdom. That there are things that if we can understand how our brains are wired and what's happening around us in our world, that perhaps we can change the trajectory of this mental health crisis that we're in. And that sounds like really good news, doesn't it? Well, good news. It is good news that there is an answer, that there are things that can actually influence the brain and lead them to healing. Now, let me pause and say this, though. I'm going to say a lot of things today, and I'm going to pertain them more to parents, because parents, I want you to be equipped with some practical tools to help your kids. However, these tools that we're going to talk about today, which are very practical, can be applied to everyone. Like, these are connection tools. These are just people connection tools. And so as you're listening today, consider them all people skills, like coworker, neighbor, spouse, whoever's in your life. If they're suffering or hurting, you can use these tools to help them. But parents, let me say this. I'm also a parent, so I have 3 kids. In fact, this year I have a middle schooler for the first time. How do you feel about that? I know, I was like, whew. I say it now, and I'm like, it's real. It's real. And I could dog middle schoolers, by the way, and talk about how, their irrational thoughts and, all their emotional mood swings. But the reality is here's what I'm learning about my kids, especially as they get older. I've learned that it's not necessarily that they need to change, it's actually how I need to grow, right? Like, me as a parent, like, it changes, by the way. It changes, doesn't it? Parents, you get this, especially if you're a grandparent. Something miraculous happens in the teenage years, by the way. Like, you go from this place of authority and position in their life, and then over time that dwindles, and now the influences in their life are more relational influences, right? Like, their friends become a higher level of influence in their teenage years. And so as parents, if we can figure that out and actually lead by influence instead of by position, we can do some things differently. And that's what I'm learning as a parent. And I'm not the best at it. Like, I kind of get this mixed up sometimes. I had one time I was, I'm sure you don't do this, but sometimes I ignore my kids. Yeah, and I know you guys, you're super parents. Like, I can see it. I can see it in your eyes. You watching online, you're so present with your kids, you're actually home, like, with them, like, you're watching this with them, perhaps. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was ignoring my daughter and swiping through, and I could blame it on media, right? I could blame it on Facebook. It's their fault. I don't know why, but I was just ignoring my kids. And my 3-year-old comes up to me and she goes, Dad, Daddy. To which, after the third daddy, I go, yes, Reese, but I never looked up from my phone, And this little 3-year-old, not content with my response, grabs my chin and pulls it towards her face. And she goes, look at me. And she had never done that before. Now, here's what happened. I had a choice to make, right? And the choice was I could, in that moment, remind a little 3-year-old to have patience, right? I could have told her, you need to have patience. You're going to time out. I could have done whatever. Or I could have chosen in that moment to let her teach me something, to be more present. Because what Reese needed in that moment, she didn't need me to just simply acknowledge her. She needed me to see her, right? And honestly, if I can just be real, this whole mental health crisis that we're in, I just have a hunch that we have a whole lot of us that just don't feel seen. 2020 in itself as a year of not feeling seen, wasn't it? We were literally away from our coworkers. We were just home with our kids and our spouse. We were just not seen. And then we have this year of fear and loss and fear and loss. Fear of security, fear of safety, fear for health. We have the losses of dreams. We have the losses of plans. We have, in some cases, the losses of loved ones. And it's almost as if, like, the last 18 months have put our minds in this survival state. And for a teenager and for a young adult, a survival mentality is even worse for a brain that's already dealing with high anxiety and high despair. Let me give you some stats that are kind of pre-COVID stats to give you an idea of what we've been dealing with. So specifically in the next generation, suicide rates have increased by 76% for ages 15 to 19. And this is just in the last decade, by the way. Additionally, we have suicide rates nearly doubled in teen girls. We have the highest rate of increase in suicide among all age groups is in kids between 10 to 14 years old. So oftentimes we think this is a teenage problem or this is an old person problem, an older person problem. But the reality is that we're seeing that even younger kids are dealing with high anxiety, despair, and even suicide ideation. And this stat, by the way, If you're wondering, how old is that? 2019 is that stat. We have depressive symptoms are up 21% in boys and up 50% in girls. And suicide attempts among black teens increased 73% between 1991 and 2017. And there is an elevated risk of suicide, specifically among African American boys ages 5 to 11. Now, researchers don't necessarily know why, but there is an elevated risk specifically in this demographic. And then the last one is that in early 2020, an estimated 1 out of 4 young adults contemplated suicide. Think about that, 1/4. And so here we have these kind of issues that are rising in a season, in a time where even now we're still in this fear and safety and this tension of COVID. And meanwhile, we have a mental health crisis that is sitting right in front of us as well. It's no wonder at times, sometimes it just feels like we're powerless. Like, what can we do? As a pastor, I can't tell you how many times I sat across the table from a parent or a teenager who was suffering and going through hardship and feeling despair, and knowing that I had spiritual tools, but I wasn't quite sure what the practical tools were. But remember how I said there's hope? There is. There is always hope. And when we understand how God wired the brain, and we understand how we can help do some things to influence healing, then there is a great amount of hope. Because research has showed us, you ready? That love and empathy have powerful effects on the brain and can actually help heal despair, depression, and anxiety, or at least contribute towards the healing of despair, depression, and anxiety. Now, this isn't an overstatement, and this isn't a magic pill to say this is going to solve all the problems. But what I am saying is that when we slow down, when we see one another, when we have empathy and compassion and connection, it influences the brain in ways that actually promotes healing in real, tangible ways. Let me explain it. Let's break it down this way, and I'm going to give you a mini neuroscience lesson. You're like, I came to church. I didn't know I was going to have neuroscience. Well, here you go. Here's your neuroscience lesson. So when we take the brain, your brain is very complex, but we're going to simplify it, and we're going to say that your right side of your brain is where your emotional processing predominantly takes place, and your left side of your brain is where your logical processing takes place. In a healthy brain, you kind of have these back and forth functions. You have a feeling, you feel a feeling, and then you kind of logically process that feeling and vice versa. It kind of goes back and forth. The problem is that when we experience despair, high stress, cortisol, a stress hormone, starts to kind of flood the brain. This activates a part of our brain called the amygdala. And that amygdala can sometimes just go really overwhelmed, like really high alert. And what happens is when this takes place, the brain actually begins to kind of separate. Now, not physically, but in terms of processing, it creates this barrier. Despair goes way up. And anxiety and depression and despair continue to rise. It's almost as if someone who's experiencing this level of despair, oftentimes when you ask them how they feel, because there's this disconnect, the response is, I don't know. Or they might respond and say, I just feel numb. Because we need our logical processing in order to put things into words. And when we are experiencing despair, we just can't do it. It's almost as if there is this separation. But here's the cool thing. So the cool thing is that we, individuals, together, we can help heal despair and anxiety through connection. Because something else happens. When we feel empathy from another person, when we feel connected to, there's another hormone called oxytocin. You may have read about it, heard about it before, but it's an emotionally bonding hormone. And that goes to work when we really feel seen, when we really feel connected with somebody. It starts to flood the brain, and specifically, it can reroute our brain back to places of feeling safe, even early attachment. And when that happens, the whole alarm on the right side of the brain that says, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, begins to come down. And the brain begins to come back together. And this is where logical processing can re-engage, where somebody can actually start to express how they feel, or even start to logically process their emotions. And over time, through love and empathy and through connection, we can actually see a whole brain kind of come back together. So this is really good news. It's good news because even though we're in a mental health crisis, God has still given us a way. And it just so happens, by the way, when you look at the life of Jesus, he modeled this so well. Jesus didn't just come and speak to our logical brain. He spoke to our heart, i.e., the right side of our brain. He saw people right where they were. I think about many examples of where Jesus actually saw people. Jesus saw the woman at the well. He slowed down and he had a conversation. Jesus saw Zacchaeus up in a tree and he went and had dinner with him. Jesus saw the woman with the alabaster jar. Jesus saw Peter on the beach when he was filled with shame and guilt and remorse about what he had done. Jesus saw Mary and Martha at Lazarus' tomb. And before he spoke life into Lazarus to come out, he first saw Mary and Martha. And the shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. And I often think, why did Jesus weep? He knew what he was about to do, but I think Jesus wept because he simply understood the power of being present, to mourn with those who are mourning, to see them, to meet emotion with emotion. So, I told you I was going to make this really practical, and I'm going to make it really practical. And I want to give you 2 tools to help people when they're experiencing high despair or anxiety. So, maybe you're here, by the way, and you're experiencing this yourself. These 2 tools can also help you, by the way, and especially when you start to connect with somebody else and be open about what you're going through, these tools can help you to kind of manage some of this yourself. So 2 quick tools on how you can help somebody and connect with them on a deep level to help them feel seen. The first one is to show up and slow down. And what I mean by that is there it is, so show up and slow down. To show up and slow down. Showing up is 50% of the work. We live in this fast-paced culture, and I know over the last few weeks you've been talking about this, that our culture is so fast-paced that we are going 100 miles per hour. And when we are going 100 miles per hour, you know what tends to decrease? Empathy, love, slowing down and seeing one another tends to decrease. But showing up is 50% of the work. So 2 quick practicals on that. First one is to show up undistracted, to put your phone down and not necessarily have this barrier between you and the person that you're communicating with. Adults, we like to give teenagers a hard time about this, don't we? But the reality is this technology thing is no longer just a younger generation problem. It's an all-generation problem. We are just as addicted to our devices as the younger generation. Maybe different apps, If you're over the age of 60, you might be more addicted to Facebook. If you're under the age of 25, you might be more addicted to, let's say, Snapchat. I don't know. But the whole idea is that we are just as bad than even the younger generation. So we have to choose to kind of disconnect. Now, let me say this, too, about phones and technology. Because inevitably, anytime I talk about this, there's somebody that yeah, that's right, brother. You tell them. We don't need this technology, and I have a flip phone, those people. So let me speak to this. I don't want a world without smartphones, and I know you don't either. In a real practical way, you really don't, because none of us want a world without cars, right? Think about that. Imagine if you didn't have a car. It would have taken you, half the day to get to church, right? But think about it. We've had cars for 100 years. So now they're safer. They have seat belts, they have airbags, they have cars that park themselves. But it didn't start that way, right? In the same way, phones we've had them for 10 years. So they don't have a lot of seat belts. We don't know how they're affecting us completely. In smartphones and technology, we don't have a whole lot of safety features yet. So we have to create our own safety features. And part of that is recognizing our own boundaries, but then helping lead the next generation to creating their boundaries as well. But when we need to connect with somebody, even the presence, research has shown, even the presence of a phone can sometimes decrease vulnerability. So take this and put it way over there and just simply see the people when you need to show up. When somebody's in a crisis, when they're experiencing high anxiety, just show up and slow down. A couple years ago, I was going to meet with a teenager who had just gone through a major crisis. His dad committed suicide. And as we were driving, I was kind of looking, me and a small group leader, I was looking through my Bible and I was thinking about what I was going to say. And I remember this dad, who was a fire chief, had dealt with many of these situations and dealing with somebody who is going through a crisis. He said, listen, you don't need to say anything in this moment. He's like, just understand the ministry of presence. The ministry of presence. And that is so true. It's 50% of the work is to simply just show up and slow down. And show up undistracted. The next one is this: to show up when it's inconvenient. Especially if you have a teenager. Let me talk to parents of teenagers, by the way. They always want to talk at midnight. There's actually science behind this, by the way. Like, their circadian rhythm, like kind of the way that their brain functions, they tend to be more talkative. And we know this as youth pastors. My history of working in youth ministry, when we're on a camp or a retreat, like they're always wanting to talk at like midnight when every leader wants to go to sleep, right? But sometimes we just have to show up even when it's inconvenient. So when you have somebody who's hurting, show up, slow down, show up undistracted, and show up even when it's inconvenient. All right, here's the last one. The last one is simply this, that, when we show up, they feel loved. They feel loved. So the next one is this, that we need to see them. We need to see them. Specifically, we need to see them beyond the behavior to see the emotion. See beyond the behavior and to see the emotion. So going back to that brain illustration, right brain, left brain, right? Let's say that you have somebody in your life and they're really upset. Let's say parents, I'll use this example again, like you have a kid who failed their tests. And they come home and they're upset and they're like, I failed my test, and they're crying and I can't believe it. They start blaming the teacher because they always blame the teacher. And as a parent, what we do typically, our knee-jerk response is, well, of course you failed your test. Last night I was telling you to practice or study, and you were on Xbox Live, and we've gone through this before, and you told me you were going to study, and then you never did. So you know what? God doesn't help those who don't help themselves, right? And we just want to give logical processing. But here's the problem: when you have somebody who's right brain activated, and you meet them with left brain, what happens? You pass right by them. So when we talk about seeing them, what we're talking about is to meet right brain with right brain first. Meet right brain with right brain first, and then you can bring in the logic. The way I like to put this too, another way I like to say it is, win the heart before you try to lead the mind. And that's with everybody. So think about it. You have a spouse who's upset about a situation at work, and you want to go ahead. Husbands, we're terrible at this, aren't we? We want to fix it. And husbands, you get upset too. You're like, I don't know why she's so angry at me. I was just trying to help. Because you didn't see her. Meet right brain with right brain first. Here's what that looks like. Your kid comes in, your spouse comes in, they're upset. They're distraught, and they're like, I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. You can see the emotion. And instead of saying all the logical things to fix their problem or tell them why they need to do something different in the future, what if you just simply said, oh, you failed your test? Yeah, I failed my test. Oh, I bet you feel really disappointed. I would feel disappointed if I failed my test. Yeah, I do feel disappointed. Okay, sit down. Tell me about it. And just, what would happen if we just listened? And then maybe after 10 minutes, then parents, we can say all the logical thing. Then husbands, maybe after 30 minutes, we can give our logical answers. The point is, when people are right brain activated, just meet them with right brain first. Meet right brain with right brain, and then left brain with left brain. When we do this, here's what we end up doing. Going back to that brain illustration, the right brain gets so overactivated. When you allow people to just pause and you see them, what you're doing is you're allowing them to what we like to call emotional exhale. So imagine you have all of this like emotional breath in you, like, and if you keep it in, after a while, it pops. It comes out in panic attacks. It comes out in despair. It comes out in different ways. But if we can ever so slowly at times when we feel connected to, when we feel seen, when we feel empathy, we allow people to just go and emotionally exhale. When the emotional exhale takes place, then we can engage the logical brain. But we can't do it first. We have to first meet heart with heart. then we can meet mind with mind. Does that make sense? All right. So when we show up, they feel loved. When we see them, they feel understood. So let me close with this. We need to fight for those that we care about. Parents, we need to fight for our sons and daughters. But I want to leave you with this last thought, that we need to fight for them by changing the way that we connect to them. Not demanding that they change, not demanding that something's different for them, but to simply choose to say, what can I control? And what I can control is the way that I connect with them. Now, inevitably, you might be somebody in this room and you say, well, you know what? My generation, we pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps kind of people, right? And I get that. But the reality is, by the way, that the generations have changed. And the things that we had early on in generations that kind of helped build resilience to overcome these negative emotions, we no longer have. To give you some examples of this, I often thought, like when I read Paul's life, I'm like, he should have been in therapy, right? I'm like, he was shipwrecked, beaten, all sorts of things, bitten by snakes. But let me tell you why I think Paul didn't need therapists. His culture was so much slower. He processed. He probably modeled the same model that Jesus had, where he would go in solitude and prayer every morning. If Paul had to go have a meeting in Lehi, that would be like a 2-day deal. And what did he do while he was going to Lehi? Well, first, he probably had to get in a canoe, but he would just process, right? He would maybe pray. He would think about his thoughts. There would be this emotional exhale. If he was walking with somebody, there was more connection in that culture than there is today. There was no podcasts, no audiobooks, no music. It was just Paul, his thoughts, and Jesus. I think about my grandparents' generation, those that were kind of, the 75 plus crew. I watched them as I was a young boy, and I watched them sit in living rooms and eat cake and tea and just talk. And there was a time in our culture where you used to have a special cookie jar or a little cake just in case somebody came by, right? Because we had more connection in conversations. Now, if somebody stopped by unannounced, we'd be like, what are you doing? Chances are, if you're over the age of 50, you can't think of a single person in your high school who had suicidal thoughts or even attempted suicide. But if you ask a teenager, almost every teenager knows somebody. And chances are you do too. Our world's changed. And physical places have been replaced by digital spaces. And the thing that we need most right now is face-to-face connection, and specifically, we need to feel seen. We need love and empathy. We need people to see beyond our exterior and to see our emotion. We need times where we can just emotionally exhale in a safe environment. Let me say this, if you're watching online today or you're here in the room, and maybe you don't feel seen, and maybe you're the one that feels exactly how I was describing. Maybe you're even here and you've had thoughts of hurting yourself. Look at me. I need you to know that there's always hope. And how you feel today isn't how you're going to feel forever. That feelings are real and they're important, but feelings are just feelings. And there's always hope. And maybe you don't feel seen, but I want you to know that there's a God who does see you. And you're here for a reason. You stepped into this place, you clicked that button, and you're watching this because there's a reason. And I believe it's because there is a God that loves you and he sees you. He sees your pain. And maybe there was a time where you had a relationship with him and you've kind of turned your back and you're like, I don't know, God doesn't love me anymore. Listen, you can take 1,000 steps away from Jesus. It only takes 1 step back to him because he's never left you. He's never left your side. He's right there with you. And so if you need to just say, Jesus, I need you, and you need to turn your heart back to him, it's a simple prayer. It's not hard. He doesn't make it hard for us to experience salvation in a relationship with him. It's simply saying, God, I need you. Forgive me of going my own way. Forgive me of my mistakes. Forgive me of my sin. I believe that you died on the cross so that I could live, and that you rose again so I could have the hope of heaven. Come into my life. Lead me. Be my Lord, my leader, my Savior, my rescuer. It's that easy. It's a prayer. And watch. Watch as God and light come rushing into your darkness. I believe it. Maybe you're here in this room and you have a kid or a teenager, and maybe as a parent you feel like you failed. The problem with teaching this connection content is inevitably parents, we feel this parent guilt. We feel like we didn't do enough or we could do more. But listen, I want to just pause and say, listen, it's never too late either for you. It's never too late to recognize that you can connect and to see your kids, your teenagers in a different way. So I want to encourage you that no matter how you feel, you haven't failed. Because parents, more than anyone, you have a superpower to help heal the brain. Your kids, their emotional memory is stronger than their cognitive memory. So when you choose to engage and see them in a real practical way, their brains go back to early attachment into places of safety quicker than any other person trying to do that. So parents, just know your love is a superpower, and it influences kids in a big way. And so just keep loving them. It's not a magic pill, and I get it. Like, you know, you got to let yourself off the hook here. But I just want you to know you're not powerless, that there are steps you can take to help the next generation. And the last one, I just want to say, if you have somebody who's struggling, whether it's a kid or a coworker or a spouse with despair, anxiety, or depression, there are practical tools that help, but there's one tool that is most powerful, and that's the tool of prayer. Prayer is a powerful tool. And so I want to invite you in this moment to let's just start. Let's pray for them. Let's pray for those who are hurting, those who are experiencing some of these anxieties and depression and despair, because I believe that there is a God that sees them, he loves them, and he wants to come rushing in to their situation. Let's pray all across this room, watching online. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, we come before you. We thank you that you have not left us alone, that there is always hope. I thank you for the wisdom of understanding how you've wired us, how you've created us, and specifically how you've created our brain. That even in the midst of our culture and high anxiety and despair, that God, you are with us. I pray that you would help us as a church, as a people, that you would help us to see one another differently, that you would help us to connect on a deep level, to show up and to slow down, to help the brain that you created be influenced towards wholeness. God, I pray for every single person who's listening or watching online who doesn't feel seen by you. God, I pray that you would come rushing into their situation. I pray for every parent, every spouse, every caring adult, anyone who has someone that they're concerned about. I pray that you would give them a heart of compassion. I pray that you would give them a heart that sees others differently, and that we would choose to engage in a new way, that we would choose to connect in a way that we've never connected before, that we would choose to walk as people that helps others to feel seen. And I pray this all in Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen.
Amen. Amen. Give it up for Will Hutcherson. Such a good message. Just want to give you a quick encouragement. Again, his book is out in the lobby. And if you are a parent of young kids, teenagers, or even if you just have a relationship that you feel like is maybe slipping away, you're not seeing each other the same way, I would just encourage you. I've read this book already. We actually have Will coming back tomorrow for a leadership meeting as well, for all of our youth leaders as well. This book is so practical. It will give you some real live tools to use and implement right away. And it's all under 99 pages, which, how do you get that in today's world? So that's super awesome. Make sure it is out in the lobby, so you can stop by that booth and buy that. Other than that, we love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Pastor Will, for joining us today and sharing with us another great perspective of getting our life back. Today, if you decided to take that first step and give your life to Christ, I want to be the first to say congratulations. We say it here all the time that living for Christ is the greatest adventure of your life. And as you continue to grow in your faith and become who God has created you to be, we are so excited to be a part of your journey. So today, if you committed your life to Christ, we would like to send you a short video each day this week and just help you walk out that first week walking with Christ. To receive these videos, just click the connect link that appears after you've clicked the link in the chat saying you'd like to commit your life to Christ. Or just text Cape Yes to 94,000. Congratulations, this truly is a special day. All right, Church Online, thank you so much for joining us this week. And if you'd like someone to pray with you, you can always click that live prayer button and one of our hosts will gladly join you in a private chat for a time of prayer. This is your church, and we're here for you. So the chat is going to remain open for the next few moments. And if you need anything at all, just let us know. So go ahead, hang out, connect with others, and share some awesome stories from this past week. And if you haven't downloaded the Cape Christian app yet, it's the best way to connect with us during the week and get plugged into all the different ministries here at Cape Christian. Thanks again, church, and we'll see you next week as Pastor Corey wraps up the final week of Get Your Life Back.